One rainy Saturday, 4 men met in a pub in a village called Finally. Now, that's a strange name for anywhere, isn't it? But you'll understand why the village had such a name when I get to the end of the story. These 4 men sat together round a table with their drinks. 3 of the men were very unhappy. Their lives had so far been ruined because of premature ejaculation. The 4th man was a magician. The first man had a beer. The second man had a cider. The third man had a wine. And the magician had, well, a magic drink, of course. The magician asked the first man, "How are you?" The first man hung his head, trying to avoid the gaze of the others around the table. "I'm miserable," he replied. "I've had premature ejaculation since as long as I can remember. I was happy as a kid. My parents were hard-working, always made sure that my siblings and me had everything that we needed. But no, none of us ever talked about sex or anything like that because we were shy, a bit self-conscious, you might say. So when I had my first girlfriend, I didn't really know much at all about girls other than what I'd seen in porn. And I certainly didn't know much about what was expected of me. So I came quickly. She never called, texted or anything. I don't blame her. Same thing has happened in every other attempt I've had at having a proper relationship. It's ruined my sex life, destroyed my confidence in myself, and I've settled for a career that I'm successful in, but one that bores me and I never really wanted to be. "I'm so sorry to hear that," the magician replied. And turning to the second man, he asked, "How are you?" The second man stared at the magician with a blank expression and slowly shook his head. "I'm desperate," he said. "I was late starting my sexual life, and I came quickly in my first ever sexual experience. It was humiliating. She didn't say anything, but I knew she was disappointed and probably angry. I came as soon as I tried to penetrate. I would have come even sooner if I had have let her touch me there. I avoided her touching me, and instead I desperately tried to please her. I thought, if I can give her an orgasm, then I won't have been a failure, and we can have sex after she's satisfied. Obviously, I failed. The more desperate I became to please her, the more she tensed up and obviously wasn't enjoying what I was doing to her. I've tried everything to last longer in sex since then, but nothing has worked. The harder I try, the worse it gets. Sometimes I even finish before it starts, if you know what I mean." "I'm very sorry to hear that," the magician replied. And turning to the third man, he asked, "And how are you?" The third man's chin began to break up and his eyes watered. "I'm lonely," he replied. "My parents split up when I was about 9 or 10. I was the eldest, so I tried to be the sensible one in the family. My mum had suffered enough from my dad, and she was always so tired, working hard to keep me and my brother. and he was a pain in the arse, and my mum would sometimes be so unhappy and upset. I just wanted to support her. I loved her. Well, I still do love her. She died when I was in my 20s, breast cancer. And it took me ages to get the courage up to ask a girl out. There was this one girl, so lovely. I did ask her out, and after several weeks, we ended up in bed. It should have been the best night of my life, but it turned out to be the worst. I actually finished before I'd even got undressed. I'd been so nervous about this night for ages. She was so beautiful, the loveliest girl in the whole world. I loved her. I still do. She meant the whole world to me. Of course, I never let her know what had happened before we got into bed. She was too excited and nervous herself for me to tell her what had happened to me. Of course, it was a disaster. I couldn't even get an erection after that. My mind wanted to hold her, make love to her, but my body wasn't feeling anything. My penis was dead. I'd just come, for fuck's sake. God, how I hated myself for that. A failure. That's what I am. No, of course I never saw her again. Well, why would she want anything to do with a loser like me? Now I don't even look to date women. I have no confidence. There's something fundamentally wrong with me. The magician said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." And silence fell in the pub for several minutes while the three men picked up their drinks. The first man continued to drink his beer, the second man to drink his cider, and the third man sipped his wine. The magician was the first to break the silence. What would you say if I told you that you can control, even master your ejaculation, put the past behind you and find happiness, love, and fulfillment, not only in the bedroom, but in other areas of your life as well? I would say you're mad, said the first man. I wouldn't believe you, said the second man. I would hope you meant it, said the third man, but I'd be very suspicious, skeptical. The magician picked up his glass. In this glass, he said, is a magic elixir. If you drink this, you will be changed from the inside out. You will know everything you need to understand why you have suffered from this great trap that has ruined your life so far. You will find new pathways will be opened up in your brain. It will quieten those negative thoughts that haunt you. It will produce the right chemicals in your body. It will send pleasurable sensations through your nervous system. It will empower you. You don't have to believe me right now. And at first, you might not even like the taste of the magic elixir. But if you're willing, or even if you're simply desperate, miserable, or lonely enough to drink it, you'll soon discover the taste is intoxicating and you'll go from strength to strength. More silence fell in the pub in the village called Finally. And then finally, even after everything they had tried and failed, they reached out for the magic elixir. 6 months later, the three men met again in the pub. The first man was happy. The second man was calm, and the third man brought photographs with him of his fiancée. There was no need for the magician to be there for long. He had seen the elixir work for hundreds of men, and there were still hundreds more that needed this magic potion. So on this day, in a pub in a village called Finally, he was busy meeting other men who needed his help.